Hello everyone in the community. In today's practical exercise video, we're going to break down this anticipation pounding mochi animation. I actually already did this little example that's like a slightly different, easier approach because it doesn't have the cauldron and we're kind of exaggerated the motion a little bit. And yeah, I'm about to take you through how to do this step by step. So let's get into it. So in Procreate Dreams, if you tap on the screen with 5 fingers, it can enter into the full screen mode. But if you 5-finger tap back, it's gonna go back to the working mode. So let me show you how to do this. So you can tell here, I actually kind of exaggerate the motion a little bit here, and then dook. And so I recommend following this animation so that it's more simplified, more sketchy, and this is more like a finished version. So let me just quickly turn this off and then move this over to the left side, so it's a lot easier for us to see what is going on. So with Mr. Tanuki-san, we're gonna break it down to 3 poses, and yeah, so we have the first pose, which is the establishing pose. So let me sketch that in here. So everything, we want to start with your simplified shape. And if your character is more like a human character, that's totally okay too. You can just kind of rough in the sketch here. And then the second pose is kind of, so that's one of the extreme. And then this is like the up pose. So what I would do, is that I'm gonna show you guys how high I want the character to jump. So this is where I'm gonna kind of rough it in, and maybe I will have the little bit of line of action. So now we're just kind of sketching in everything, right? So I'm like, okay, I want the character to jump from here to here. Okay, that sounds pretty cool. And the next one is kind of like going back. So that's the last pose, which is another key pose. So whoop. And then here we're gonna add in the extremes. So in order to add in the extreme, I like to have a little bit of the reference. So let me just enter the full screen mode so it's easier to see. So here I want to apply line of action. So with one feet kind of goes up, I kind of want to have the kine slightly. Okay, maybe that's a little bit too close to the little paw. So maybe a little bit more like, oh, I feel like I didn't leave enough space. Okay, if it overlaps, that's a-okay. Maybe somewhere here. Okay, that feels a little bit nicer. And I kind of want to have the Tanuki-san look all the way to the top. And okay, so that's pretty exaggerated, and I like that. And let me see. So this is just like a sketching version of it, and that's the extreme. So how do we go from here to here? And obviously to here to here. So usually we sketch in the first 4 poses, so extreme key poses, and this is the other extreme, and then back to the last pose. Okay, so let's get into it. So what I will do is I will actually instead of creating a new track, I think we can just get into this because this is like the rough animation as well. So that's the first pose. So what I will try to do is to see how many frames I want to take from here to here. And let's take a look. Yeah, so the first step is definitely have the feet up, and it's around here. So I'm just gonna have the character lean back very slightly. So if you just draw the same size of the ball, and then you see like how curved that is, and that's how extreme we want it to be. But this one we're gonna ease into that motion. so we don't have to have the body super curved just yet. But also I think I also want to kind of have it more in between. So I also want to have the leg kind of go up a little bit. It's quite similar to that falling down animation that we did. And obviously the ear is gonna follow through the previous one. We're gonna add all the ears and stuff afterwards, but right now let's focus on, yeah, I should be a good example. We'll do the ear together later, and I will show you how I make the ear looks bouncy and nice. And now let's just sketch in how we want the body to look like. So kind of going up, and let me just quickly count back in, and then maybe sketch in like where I want the eye to be, looking like that. Maybe I'll make the head a little bit, and it's totally fine that if you want to add some whiskers and stuff later on, but right now we're focusing on the big shape because this is going to help you to make that smooth animation first. And yeah, I feel like the body and the head are kind of separated here, so maybe I can just work on the body a little bit more and making sure that when we're flipping through the animation feels nice. What I really like to do is I add this drop shadow at the end to show the gravity of the character first. So it feels like they're, standing on something. They're not just floating in the middle of the canvas. Yeah, so that's gonna add a sense of gravity to it. So you can see that already feels nice. And I just kind of make the angle slightly better. And then we're gonna transition, so that's gonna be 2 frames. We're gonna transition to this frame, and obviously I have the character looks up, and I think I'll just sketch in kind of like where I want the face to be, and that's all good. And yeah, so this frame is gonna stay here for a little bit. And we actually only have one in between. If you want, we can actually add one more, which I think we can totally do that. So if you want to add one more in between, what would we do? What I would do is I'll kind of make sure the contact point of the feet it's the same, and then I sketch the body in. Obviously, it's in between that, and maybe add a little bit of smear frame for the feet. Why not? And then, yeah, usually the in-between is what we use as the smear frame. And let me just take a look, see, and obviously we can kind of draw an arc here to kind of sketch in where we want the nose to be. And then for the eye, we can just in between that. And we still want to keep it looking upwards, so keep that consistent. And let me take a look. I think that might, like that might, yeah, that feels pretty nice. So maybe so you can tell that the head is here. I feel like we can how do you say it, we can favor the extreme frame instead of just having a straight in between, because guys, don't be afraid to kind of rework your sketches, and that's also kind of the reason why we're keeping it rough, right? So if you feel like you want to change one frame to the other, and obviously here you can tell that I'm favoring the extreme frame because I want to have that easing effect. And so it means that in terms of audience skin, compared to this frame, I'm closer to the blue frame. Yeah, so that's called favoring. If your in between is closer to one of the other frame, that is you favoring the frame, and that's gonna make it a little bit more snappy. Yeah, so that's so good. Yeah, so I'm already feeling that favor, and I really like that. We'll add in the ears later, because that's gonna be something that I kind of want to talk you guys through a little bit more. And I think right now will be a really good time to kind of add in that kine. I don't really know how to say that in English. I think it's like a wooden millet. I think that's the thing. Okay. And obviously the next frame, yeah, so let me just kind of add a lot more frame to the onion skin so I can maybe draw an in between to kind of fix how I want like the middle of like right now I realize this actually needs to be slightly higher, and that's okay as well. So at the beginning keep it a little bit more like here, and when it start to kind of lean back a little, this can be around here, and then gradually not that one. Okay, this one, because it's favoring the last frame, extreme frame, so it looks like that. Oh, I want to keep it straight here. Okay, and then this one, let me just fix that angle. It's a lot easier to work when you have like a few frames before and after to see how you want it to flow. Yeah. Okay, so because we adding that little guideline, that little arc, so it's making that kine animation path a lot easier to draw in. And okay, so that's the preparation. This is how we set up the anticipation and build up the momentum before we have the big action. So now the character is about to kind of like jump up, and because of the impact, it's so extreme when he pound the mochi down. That's why his whole body will kind of fly up, and that's really fun, right? And yeah, so how do we get from here to here? So obviously we kind of want the character to be able to lean forward, and then we want to have that extreme version. So basically what happened is, let's decide where the mochi is, and we're gonna draw the mochi in later on. So let me just add a new, I cannot see that. Let me just add a new frame here, and it's outside of the canvas, that's okay. And let me just add the mochi in, and obviously I'll just keep that there for a little bit, maybe lower the opacity, and let me just use that as a reference so I know where is the ground. Let me just sketch that in. Okay, that's the ground. This is where I want the mochi to land. Yeah, this version, they don't have any hygiene. They're just pounding mochi on the ground. I know. That's how we want it for this one. Yeah, so let me just draw the arc, because the way how the tanuki-san is flying up is heavily relying on where the kine is. So that's why I decide to draw in the kine first, and then I'll decide, okay, that's the next frame. And obviously when it first kind of pound down, the kine will still be kind of stretched, and then because of how crazy heavy it is, then maybe it's gonna kind of squash down a little bit. So even kine is supposed to be quite a hard object, right? But in animation, we can sort of create that sense of illusion that everything is kind of have that squash and stretch, and that's okay. I think that's what makes animation really fun. So let me just sketch that in, because when the mochi got pounded by kine, it also kind of spreads out. So this part, the mochi, I'm just using the reference. It's not gonna be as outwards. So let me just do it in between, and again I like to sketch the shadow in, the drop shadow. Yeah, so that feels nice. Might just have a little bit of that shape again, and then let me just make that a little bit nicer. So this is gonna be the in-between frame. So okay, now we reference from this frame, and now we kind of want the how do you say, the tanuki-san to kind of fly up, and that's when he's really up. So we want him to be kind of here. This is where the head lands, and then this is where we want the body to be. And obviously I want this to be like a C curve, because here he's like curving backwards so much. Now because he's pounding in so hard, I want him to kind of curve forward. And so we have the body flights up, and we're gonna keep the feet here. And you can see that line of action. It's a little bit messy, so let me clean that up a little. And see that line of action. He's like going forward, crazy. And let's see. So we want the hand to be here. And if the next frame feels like it's a little bit too high, we can always fix that. Oh, I need to charge my iPad really quickly. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, so this frame, we want it to be all about exaggeration, right? And I think this is also the frame that we can maybe sketch in the tail. So let me just quickly put in, and obviously when the body kind of flights up, we want the face to be facing down as well. So I'm gonna quickly sketch in the tail. Here we're gonna sketch in the tail as well. And to be honest, the body just kind of have that up and then snap up. And then we can actually have another frame where he kind of flights up a little bit. So we ease into that flying up motion. So let me just add another frame here. Yeah, so it means that his body can even go a little bit more upwards, ease into that flying motion. The feet can be all the way here, and then this is where the tail is going to be. And then this is when I'm going to just move the hands slightly more in the upwards position. And obviously here I want to sketch in the face so that I know where everything is. Okay, it doesn't have to be perfect. Now I just sort of have that indication of where everything is, and I really like that. Okay, a little bit of that easy motion. Obviously, the next frame, I kind of want the kine to squash down even more because he's still in midair. So I'm really exaggerating that motion. We'll see how that looks like later. Okay, this looks absolutely crazy, and that's fine. And I think I'm just gonna add a few action line here. And he's about to fold down and then ease back into the final position, which is kind of like the first pose. But before that, because we're already kind of out of the tail, no, yeah, we can kind of have it land first. So, okay, so the mochi is about to bounce back. So let's kind of draw where the kine is. Obviously, kind of want to copy and put in that first frame so I know where it is. And I will probably come back here. So what I would do is I would decide the landing pose first. So obviously, I think his feet's kind of gonna be mid-air. He might kind of stretched up a little bit, and then the kine is kind of all the way maybe mid this area. Yeah, so it's like okay, that feels pretty nice. We'll be able to see the bottom of the kine. I kind of sketch that in first, and then I'll kind of come back and fix. Okay, and fix. Okay, do I want the face to look a bit more up? So it really depends on the previous frame, and then this is like the squash frame. So if I wanted to kind of squash down a bit, maybe I'll look at the last frame and I'll be like, okay, if I wanted to squash down a bit, this is where I want the character to be. So it's pretty squashed down, even the feet can get a bit chubbier. It's gonna make it really cute. And here. So now I can decide how I want the tanuki-san to look like. I want to have one feet landing on the ground and the one feet kind of like mid-air. So he's trying to like get his balance. And I think instead of this, I'm gonna have him kind of tilting a little bit forward like that, and his face is a bit like tilted. So yeah, that feels pretty nice. And I'm gonna just draw in the tail as well because kind of want that So it's coming all the way from here, and I'll draw in that motion. And I think this one can maybe squash down a little bit more, so that's why on the extreme. Yeah, it looks crazy. Why not? Okay, and now it's time to draw in that in between. So it's gonna stay in mid-air for quite a long time, and then it's gonna start falling. So let me just say that to 2 frames, so it's a lot easier for me to see. So I think we can just draw an in between, kind of ease into that motion. So guys, a lot of time when you don't really know how to get one pose to the other pose like that, you just kind of decide where you want your character to be, and then you can kind of come back and try to put that in between without thinking too much about how you want to execute it. But sometimes when you put down the extreme first, then you think about the in-betweens after, it does make it a lot easier. And yeah, so let me just put that little, so you can tell that before the feet land, I'm gonna kind of have the feet pointed upwards. And I really want the tail to play that role here to make it really fun. Maybe have a little bit of that smear frame, so it's about to fold down like that, and it feels really cute. I think the tail here can actually be all the way here. Yeah, that feels nicer. So we can come back here and in between these 2 tails. So yeah, okay. And obviously, here I think we can exaggerate it even more. And that's fine. And then here the tail kind of settle, squash down with the tanuki-san as well. And then we're gonna have it go back. Obviously, we have one more frame here, so I think I'm just gonna draw one in between. So let me just lower the amount of frames, too much information. And yeah, I'm just gonna draw one frame here. And then just sketch that in, and then the body doesn't need to be as squashed just yet, so I'm gonna just find the contact point of the ground. And oh, okay, I feel like it's okay like this. Okay, sketch, like sketchy version, and we might later on find out the tail is a little bit too big and might be a little bit overwhelming, but that's okay. Tanuki-san's tail can be very full of volume. Okay guys, so I'm just kind of looking at all the frames, and then here we can actually add one more in between before between this extreme frame and then the last frame. So let's do that together. And everything we're using here, it's all of the animation foundation that we built from day one, right? And then now you probably already realize, wow, everything is actually all using that animation principle, and it actually, like the ball bounce exercise and the bouncy ball exercise actually applies to a lot of the places, and it can use that in a lot of the different scenarios. So yeah guys, now you realize how convenient that is. And now you will even know how to exaggerate your, like, the bounce or the character, because we already practiced that. So let me just add the in-between frame, and that's the last frame. So now let's add in the kine. So after it kind of squashed down, I kind of want to have one frame where the kine is in between of try not to end the frame here. That's something to watch out for, because if you play through, it will kind of have that weird illusion of something's overlapping in a weird place. So if we want things to move in action, we don't want to like completely overlap certain parts of the drawing, and just double check back and forth to see if it flows well. And yeah, that looks like it's floating well. So so here it's gonna be where the mochi, it's gonna start to get really sticky, and it's gonna kind of stick up a little bit with the, how do you say, with the kine. And then I'm gonna add in some action line as well. Try to keep everything like flowy and smooth. And obviously here we're gonna add in sound of that mochi stretching up. So when it stretch up, we want to decrease the value of the base mochi just a little bit, and maybe connect that line to see how thin we want it to get, so it can be like that, kind of like the water animation, the water droplets animation, but now we're doing mochi. And this one we can really stretch that mochi. So let's kind of come back into that motion and then see where we want the hand to be, and this is where we want the kine to be. And yeah, and then let's draw in the mochi. We can kind of design that fluid shape. I think I'll just keep it simple like that. You can design how you want the mochi to stick on your kine, and you kind of really stretch that apart. And obviously the volume's gonna get slightly smaller as well, so like that. I mean, the drop shadow can be a little bit smaller because of the volume of the mochi, but yeah, we're just sketching it in and kind of go back and forth, see how that feels. Feels nice, I like it. And then here can be where let me just double check. Okay, I think we want, okay, we don't want too much. Let me just add more. So now you can see this is the final frame, so we don't want the kine to be here. And as you can see here, this frame feels a little bit too high. So okay, how do we do that? We might be able to, okay, this is the issue that we have. So what happened is I might just copy this frame, and this is why we have to work all the frames seamlessly together. And yeah, you can tell this frame is a little bit too high. My bad, guys, my bad. So what happened is, if I don't want to redraw it, I might just kind of move down a little to kind of match the arc. So the most important thing that we want is that it matches the arc. And then let me just double check that. Does it feel like it's matching the arc? Now it feels like it's a little bit better. And let me just keep it as one keyframe. Okay, that feels like it's, yeah, okay, I think it's still a little bit too thick, so let me just fix that real quick and maybe do more like this motion, and then we can just pull it up a little bit more like that, like this. Yeah, so that feels quite nice. It has that sort of exaggeration going on. And obviously I'm gonna change the hand position to here. Sometimes you can break the model if it's needed. And kind of following that arc. And that's good. And yeah, that's how we know in this frame it's not going to be too intense. And obviously here we're gonna have it ease into the last frame like that. So let me just quickly sketch that in. And obviously the last frame looks a little bit small, so we're just gonna fix that real quick. And yeah, this is how we check the smoothness of the arc, and that feels nice. So let me just copy the first frame and then paste it here, so we can be constantly fixing our our key poses based on the general motion and the arc. Yeah, so that feels pretty nice. Guys, let's add the let's add the ear together and then we can go back to the mochi. So usually we start with just very simple triangle shape, and then when it kind of tilt back, we can have the ear follow through, so it's following through the previous frame, and then the next one can follow through as well. And then this one I also want to follow through a little bit more, but not too much. And then before it kind of jumps up, I want to have the ear goes up like that. And whoop, now it can kind of flop a little bit more forward. Ooh, I think this one I might even have it kind of flop all the way back because I kind of want to make it look a bit. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Okay, maybe we still wanted to stay in that triangle shape, so instead of having it fold up, we're gonna just tilt the triangle. Yeah, that feels nicer. And obviously here we can have even kind of go a little bit forward because of the momentum. And then once it starts falling down, we can stretch the ear. This is when we're gonna have fun. Looks like a little fox now, but that's okay. As long as the final key pose is quite it looks like a tanuki because tanukis only have like smaller, poofier triangle shaped ear, right? And then this is the frame. When they comes up, you can kind of flop the ear a little bit onto the side because it's just straight up, so you can kind of design the motion yourself, and then it kind of flops back to the original pose. So like this, and then the hand might be covering that, but that's okay. Hey, sure. Yeah, so what I would do with the hand is I might try to avoid the ear. So I'll come back and fix it. And when I'm doing cleanup, I will kind of put the hand around this area. So that's called breaking the character. It's because usually tanuki-san, their hand is so short, it doesn't really make sense it's all the way up there. But when it's in motion, everything makes sense. So that's called breaking. Yeah, that's called breaking the character. Breaking the rig. And let me just draw in this frame. And then kind of come back to it. I think I forgot to draw the eyes here. Yeah, even in the sketch, with or without eye, makes a huge difference, eh? Yeah, eye is like the window of your soul. Okay, that feels really nice. All the ears are added in and that little bit of flop. It's everything. That's everything I love. And let's add in the tail. So when I kind of flop back a little, I think I'll just draw like quite a similar, but like that kind of follow through. And obviously here, when I have the tail kind of come down a little bit. And then here, I'll just kind of keep the similar position, maybe just slightly lower as long as I can see the difference. And then when it kind of flops up, obviously, this is when the tail is. And then we kind of want to add in that drop shadow, so it does feels like it's in midair. And then we already add in tails for this part, so we'll just continue building that. And I think we do have tail for the rest of it. You can tell that even my drop shadow, they're not very consistent. So you can always fix that later on in the cleanup animation. And let's take a look. Okay, so now it's time to fill in the rest of the mochi. Do you miss anything? Ear. Okay, it changed the position. I'm gonna just copy and then delete. I think I will just keep the same. Yeah, keep the same here because I do like the position of the first frame here a little bit more. Ooh, that feels nice. If you want, we can add some whiskers, but I'll leave it up to you guys because I think the mochi motion is more important to talk about here. So let's do the mochi. So what do we do after it breaks apart? Because we still have to have some point when the mochi is so intense that it's gonna really get pulled apart. I think here I actually wanted to, because I really want this mochi to feel stretchy. So even though it doesn't make sense that it's pulling all the way up there, I'm doing it to see how that looks like. And obviously the bottom, this part I want to keep it. Maybe I'll just make this part a little bit thinner to make it look more organic. Okay, and then this is the part when it's really going to break. So I'm just going to add a few frames like that, and there's a little bit of mochi residue falling out, maybe here. And then the first frame here, we're gonna have the mochi, kind of like water animation, but I think I'm gonna have it break it up here, and then the momentum's gonna make it stretched up a bit, and then okay, that might be a little bit too big, maybe a little bit too big. Yeah, so it kind of feels like a water animation, but the bottom part is solid. So now we have to think about this in two bowls. So when this one merge with this one, when this falls back into that join that big blue part of the mochi, how is it going to look like? So let's sketch that in. So what I will do is I'll copy this frame, make a new track, because I want to add like that volume for the mochi. So what happened after this frame is I think I would just add like a frame, looks like this, and it's really stretching up. And the next one is I want to have the mochi kind of squashed down like this. So it's really similar to our bouncing ball animation. And before it squashes down, I might just add one in between. So we want to add that boing feeling for the mochi. Ooh. And this, I might even make this one slightly thinner, slightly taller. Nice. And then we're gonna have, ooh, okay, this one feels a little bit too similar. I think this frame might have to be like all the way down here. Yeah, that feels a little bit nicer in terms of the volume. And squash back down, and then I'm gonna have the mochi bowl kind of come up a little bit. Okay, and then it's gonna settle. So before it settle, I'm gonna just add one keyframe here. I'll just tap it, add another one here, maybe make it squash up a little, so like that. So let me just take a look. Okay, the mochi here is slightly bigger than the first one, and that's okay. So let me just copy this frame and then put it all the way to the beginning and see how that's going to look like. Remember to delete that one keyframe. So this is when the mochi is gonna, oh wait, what's the frame? Okay, so this is the frame when mochi is gonna get destroyed. So before that's normal. Okay, let's take a look how this looks. Wait. I don't like what I have here a little bit more because it feels more gluey and sticky, and it has more of that organic sort of mochi shape. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come back here, maybe just rework a little bit of the shape of the mochi so it looks more like a sticky rice instead of a bowl. So okay, that feels more like food. And I think that I might just make this one slightly crazier, so it might look a bit like that, more like food. So if you think about how mochi will behave, yeah, so that feels really nice. So just make sure that if we do any changes to the last frame, we always want to copy that to the first frame as well. Delete that keyframe and do all the way here. So let me take a look. Oh, okay, it already looks a lot nicer. So let's take a look frame by frame here. So that's when it breaks apart. And okay, there's actually 2 frames here before it comes down. 3. So there's actually 1 more frame here I can add to make it a little bit crazier, like this. Let's see. Okay, yeah, that feels really nice. Yeah, so you can even try to see the residue here. It's kind of having that stretch up version, a stretch up part, and then kind of bounce back and join the rest of the mochi, and that's something that we want. And obviously you can add in the rest of the mochi part up there so that it feels like there's still a little bit left that is sticking on the kine. But I think this is, let's see, yeah, you can add that in later. And what I would do is, sorry, I'm trying to keep this video short for you guys. It's pretty long, eh? But what I would do here is I'll just draw that and then have down till the last frame, and then copy that and come to the first frame, and let's see until it starts going backwards like that. So, wait, and now just adding that little bit of mochi residue sticking on the kine, and maybe just add that in real quick. That's only 1 frame. Oh, this is a different frame. Very fun. And just a little bit left. So that few frame can be quite simplified. And then when it start, oh, we can actually add 1 more frame here. We forgot, guys. From here to jump up. So there's actually a huge smear frame here. Okay, because the motion is happening so fast. I totally forgot about this frame. Okay, so how do we get from here to here? So we want to have it moving forward. So like this. And then the body. So basically, if you draw a line of action, this is where we want to be. And obviously, I'm going to kind of work on the arc, and then making sure, so it's pretty it's a pretty extreme in between. There's a lot happening, so obviously compared to this room, I kind of want to keep this room a little bit more in that line of action. So obviously I'm gonna keep the feet the same, and I'm gonna have the feet kind of come forward, so it's getting ready to have that pounding motion. And just gonna draw in. So like instead of kind of going forward already, I kind of want to have that drag, so it feels like it's dragging behind. I'll just add the mochi in there just a little bit to give a hint. And yeah, 1, 2, 1, 2. I think that feels pretty nice. And now this frame, we want to extend the mochi to that frame. Yeah, I think we can make it slightly better here. Maybe kind of flying upwards like that. 1. Okay, I think. Yeah, okay, so now let's take a look, because we added 1 in between. How does this look like? Okay, what's that little frame here? What's happening? There's like a... Ah, okay. Just 1 frame that I didn't realize. Okay, take a look again. Hui. Okay, and now we'll come back and check every frame. Curl back, going forward. There's 1 in between, and Once it pounds down, the body flies upwards, and then it's gonna fold down, squash, and then ease back into the shape. And the secondary action is the mochi kind of bounce back. So there's a lot of squishy, fun, gooey goodness happening here. So yeah, this is such a journey. Guys, thank you so much for practicing this anticipation animation with me. And I cannot wait to see your version with your character of the mochi pounding, or it can be anything else that has anticipation principle applied to it. And make sure to submit to the private critique channel, and I will take a look frame by frame for you. But before that, thank you so much for this practice, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!